Welcome to Part 3, the Sociological Perspectives on Race and Ethnicity. Here are how you can apply some of the theories to race. The first one we're going to talk about is the functionalist perspective, and the functionalists just look at everything as working parts within the system to keep it stable. So they're not really concerned with who gets what and whether it's unequal. And so in this perspective, the first part of Nash's three functions was the moral justification for maintaining an unequal society. And so if you think about it this way, if you are a racist, if you believe that one race is superior to another, then of course the superior race should get more of the resources. And so this is one way that racism functions. The second one is that racist beliefs discourage subordinate groups from attempting to question their lowly status, because if you were to question it, then you would be directly opposed to the foundation of the society itself. And lastly, we have this idea that any major social change would bring greater poverty to the minority, and the dominant group would also suffer. This is one of the criticisms of the functionalist perspective. It just can't really explain inequalities. So now we're going to move on to the conflict perspective. Exploitation occurs when one social group is able to take for itself what is produced by another group. So if you remember with Karl Marx and the social class, how there was the bourgeoisie that was taking from the proletariat. This is the same concept, especially when we talk about social oppression. So the critical race theory focuses on the various ways that the received tradition and law adversely affects people of color, not as individuals, but as an entire group. So one of the main questions that's always kind of lurking in the mind of the critical race theorist is that what would the legal landscape look like today if people of color were the decision makers? W.E.B. Du Bois is one of the notable sociologists of his time, especially for being a man of color. He wrote The Souls of Black Folk in 1903, and here he coined the term double consciousness. And so this is the idea that people of color must have two fields of vision at all times. They must be conscious of how they view themselves, as well as being conscious of how the world views them. Here's a quote by him. "One ever feels his two-ness, an American, a Negro, two souls, two thoughts, two unreconciled strivings, two warring ideals in one dark body." And the way that I've heard this described in the past is if you wake up in the morning and you look in the mirror, what do you see? So for me, obviously, I see a white woman. But how would you describe yourself? Chances are, if you're a white male, you probably just see you. And so if you are anything other than that, then you are usually described based on those characteristics. And so this goes one step further and talks about how not only do you have to understand who you are, but you also have to understand in any circumstance how you're presenting to the world and what that actually means. W.E.B. Du Bois was quite prolific in his time, and he's written a lot about race. Have you ever been a victim of racial profiling? This is when law enforcement and private security target people of color for detentions, interrogations, and searches without evidence of criminal activity. This is based on perceived race, ethnicity, national origin, or religion. It goes along with stereotyping, and it is illegal. Historically, researchers have believed that genetics or cultural differences led some students, such as African Americans or girls, to perform poorly on academic tests. But now it's clear that negative stereotypes cause doubts and test anxiety, and this is described as stereotype threat. Social psychologists Steele and Aronson have found that even passing reminders that someone belongs to one group or another, such as a group stereotyped as inferior in academics, can impact test performance. They tested two equally matched groups of Black students. Both groups were given the same test, but the experiment group was asked to record their race before starting the test. They found that that was enough to impair their test performance, and the experiment group scored significantly lower than the control group. So it does kind of bear in mind that the stereotypes can actually impact performance. Okay, so this last one comes from the interactionist perspective, and it is called the contact hypothesis. So this is when there's contact between people that have equal status, but they are from different racial groups, and they have to do something cooperative together, such as maybe working or solving a problem, and it causes both parties to become less prejudiced and to abandon previous stereotypes that they had of each other. And this concludes our introduction to sociology overview of race and ethnicity. If you want more information, you can sign up for the 2319 course, and they will give you a lot more in-depth research and a better look at how sociology studies race and ethnicity and minorities. And I think that we have some great faculty that have expertise in this area. So I would definitely recommend doing so. And yeah, see you later.